tallest player in the history of the NBA. It was time for Manute Bol to prove just how good he was at basketball. As the starting center for the Washington Bullets, our boy Manute went on to break even more records, averaging a ridiculous 5 blocks a game his rookie season. I know this guy's 7'7", but 5 blocks a game? You think he's still playing against some 5-foot German dudes in the military? Not legit NBA stars. But other than his unbelievable blocking ability and height, Manute didn't have much else going for him. I mean, our man weighed less than a Great Dane. Literally. At 180 pounds, our boy Manute couldn't even bench a 45-pound bar. Come on, man. My little sister could bench that. So Manute was hit with a new challenge. Put on some weight or get traded from his team. Imagine this 8-foot blocking giant. Now imagine him at 250 pounds. Because that's what the Bullets were imagining. They tried everything they could to help this dude put on weight. They literally told him to start drinking beer. So Manute started downing Heinekens left and right. And from that point, our man never played another NBA game sober. Legend has it Manute would walk around the locker room butt naked drinking Heinekens all day long. Never gained a pound, but hey, at least he was happy. But even though he was happy, the Bullets still wanted him to put on some weight, and after 3 years of not even gaining an ounce, they traded him off to the Golden State Warriors. At this point, we're in 1988. Bol is living the American dream. He's still in the NBA, drinking Heinekens all night, sleeping in every day. You're probably thinking, he's made it. Until one morning, Manute was woken up by a phone call. A phone call that would change his life and the world forever. Manute was about to embark on a journey that would make the NBA look easy. Look, if there's one thing you need to know about Manute Bol, is that you don't mess with his beauty sleep. Manute was furious someone was calling him before noon. He answered the phone, he let the guy have it. But the guy on the phone wasn't a fan, manager, coach, wasn't even his mom. Instead, it was a guy speaking a language Manute hadn't heard in years. Dinka. You see, Manute came from a tribe out in Africa known as the Dinkas, and the caller was a Dinka native himself, representing a militia that had just formed back in Manute's own country, Sudan. He reminded Manute that while he's living the American dream, drinking Heinekens butt naked, there are brutal atrocities happening back home. Although Manute was enjoying his time in America, he didn't forget how merciless it was growing up. According to Bol himself, at least 250 of his own family members had either been killed, sold into slavery, or starved to death. I couldn't make Manute's past sound more horrible if I tried. Sudan was full of corrupt leaders, watching their citizens die every day, and they would keep letting it happen, as long as it meant they could get a little bit more money and power. This phone call changed everything for Manute. Saving Sudan became his life purpose. The only question now is, could he actually do it? With a bank account worth $4 million, Manute donated $3.5 million to start funding his own militia. To the public, Manute was known as the tallest player in NBA history, but in private, he was a warrior. He'd finish up an NBA game at 8:30, and by 10 he would be in a basement, instructing his militia thousands of miles away from the slaughter. He did this for years. Eventually, Manute teamed up with John Garang, a man known throughout all of Sudan as a revolutionary leader, and together, they take on Sudan's government. In one off-season, Manute flew out to Sudan to meet up with John and see how his investments were doing. The public thought that the $3.5 million was feeding a lot of hungry kids, but in reality, Manute was getting his militia strapped up. And at this point, Bol became a rebel first and a basketball player second. Deciding to leave the game of basketball entirely in 1997, Manute moved to the capital of Sudan and started directing his militia from the field. This created the most dangerous chapter of Manute's life. Keep in mind, when you're trying to overthrow a government, they're usually not going to be too happy about it. And Sudan's government wanted Manute's head. He put himself in a position where he had a newborn son, an entire army depending on him, no more money coming in, and he was the biggest target in all of Sudan. At this point, Manute literally couldn't leave his house without at least 4 bodyguards around him at all times. Ultimately, Sudan's government knew they couldn't touch Manute. He was too much of a celebrity, but what they could do was distort him. They decided to hold his exit visa, meaning he couldn't leave the country unless he stopped funding his own militia and started pouring that money into their government. Trapped in Sudan, Manute lived life with a target on his back for the next few years. Eventually, he started working with U.S. senators to try and find a way out. And as they were making progress, 9/11 happened, creating a whole other obstacle that Manute had to get through. It wouldn't be until 2002 that Manute was finally free from Sudan and on his way back to America as a religiously protected refugee. But Manute wasn't coming back to a lavish NBA lifestyle. Instead, he was now pretty much homeless. While being held hostage in Sudan, Manute dumped all of his money into his militia, even selling off every house he ever owned. Trying to make some more money off his ridiculous hype, Manute settled for some pretty humiliating jobs, swallowing his pride, doing everything on TV from ice skating to boxing a 400-pound NFL player. For a couple of years, Manute was finally making some cash to send back home, and just as things were starting to look up, Manute was ejected from a taxi. This 7'7" man was thrown through the windshield. When first responders arrived, they found Manute and the driver laying on the road, unconscious, fighting for their lives. The cab driver, Neville Robinson, went into cardiac arrest and unfortunately didn't survive the crash. Manute was airlifted to a nearby hospital and was put on life support. He remained in the ICU for a while, recovering from 2 cracked vertebrae in his neck, along with other internal injuries. Ultimately, Manute would recover, but he would be left needing a cane for the rest of his life. Doctors said if he hadn't been in great shape for being an athlete, there's no way he could have survived. And this entire crash happened because the cab driver had been drunk. This situation completely ruined Manute Bol financially. He had no health insurance, sent every dollar he made to his militia, and was now drowning in medical debt. Just a year later in 2005, no one on either side of Sudan could take the bloodshed anymore. After 2.5 million dead, the revolution was finally over. Ending their civil war with a peace treaty in Nairobi, Kenya, Sudan split in two, and Manute found himself in control of a new country, South Sudan. He spent the next few years helping form a government and campaigning from village to village on behalf of Salva Kiir Mayardit, a man who fought alongside Manute throughout this entire civil war. Since that phone call in 1988, Manute has put the revolution over everything. He put it over his career, money, fame, and...
We've lost the hard point. Hardpoint is secure. Hardpoint located.
Hostile down. That's a kill.
Hostiles have the hardpoint. Hardpoint locked down. Hardpoint contested. Hardpoint located.
They're dead.
Hostiles have the hardpoint.
Hostile male kill confirmed. Hostile down.
Enemy spy plane inbound. Enemy cruise missile launch detected. Hardpoint identified. Hostiles have captured the hardpoint. Enemy spy plane inbound. Hardpoint is secure.
EKIA. Shot out. Hookball.
Hostile spy plane established overhead. Hardpoint located.
Killed.
Hostiles have captured the hardpoint.
Contact down.
Hardpoint is secure.
한놈 해치웠다.
Contesting hardpoint. Hardpoint contested. Hardpoint located.
Enemy appears. That's a kill. Assault rifle here.